When Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams one morning, he found himself transformed in his bed into a giant insect. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the initial sentence and maybe the best summary of Franz Kafka's famous story, The Metamorphosis. As, however, a couple of things happen afterwards as well, here's today's cast. This is Gregor Samsa, also known as the Bedbug. He works as a traveling salesman and thus earns all the money of the little family. Try to memorize his face so you'll recognize him later on. The other members of his family are his father, who has ruined his own business and is now old, frail, and not so particularly nice. Then there is Gregor's mum, who is old and asthmatic, but nice. Gregor's sister Grete, who is young, musical, and nice. And then there's someone who isn't nice, the deputy boss of Gregor's. He's probably called Josef K. and will later be sued for not being nice. Then there's a servant who is hired after the old maidservant leaves screaming she's quite an old bag. Finally, there's 3 lodgers who, in spite of all their facial hair, do not work for ISIS but are fairly average creative freelancers. What is so particularly nice about Kafka's narration is that it is set in only 2 places, namely Gregor's bedroom and the adjacent living room of the family. Thus we are able today to present you a fantastic stage set. Gregor's bedroom, the family's living room. And here we go. It is an absolutely normal working day, and when Gregor awakens, he has a furry feeling in his mouth, but instead of having a hangover, he has changed into a beetle. He finds that kind of stupid and looks at the alarm clock only to realize that things are even worse. He has also overslept because it's 6:30 and he was supposed to get up at 4. And while he's still musing what to do now, he hears his mother calling from next door. Gregor, didn't you want to leave early? And he goes, it's all right, Mum. But the father is next, bangs on the door and goes, Gregor! And his sister calls, are you all right, Greg? Greg is quite busy getting up, for when a bug is on his back, he has a hard time. Suddenly the doorbell rings. Gregor hears that it is his deputy boss and, terrified, falls out of the bed. In the meantime, the deputy boss has come into the living room, and as he is quite astute, he goes, something has occurred in there. And the father goes, Gregor, your deputy boss is here, open the door. Good morning, Herr Samsa. And the mother, he's not well, he's really not well. So can Mr. Deputy Boss enter, Gregor? And he says, no. Silence. Now listen, Herr Samsa, you have been performing poorly of late, and now the boss has the suspicion that you haven't been showing up for work today because you may have been embezzling money. And Gregor is very upset on account of these accusations and explains that he will open the door immediately, but all that comes out of his mouth is eek, eek, eek. And the deputy goes, that was an animal voice. And the father calls, Anna, that's the current maid, get a locksmith and a doctor. Gregor, in the meantime, very diligently unlocks the door with his mouth and finally succeeds in doing so. He opens the door and looks out. The deputy boss says, oh, and takes a step backwards. The mother swoons, the father gets angry, and when the deputy flees from this horror, Gregor wants to run after him. He can't let him go like that, after all he'll lose his job, but his father grabs the deputy's walking stick and a newspaper, and after the mother cries, help! The father tries to shoo Gregor back into his room. The problem is that Gregor can't go backwards at this point because he's never learned it. So he has to turn around very slowly, which gets on the father's nerves. The process is excruciatingly slow until he's halfway through the door and the father kicks him violently into the bedroom and locks the door after him. When Gregor wakes again in the evening, his sister has put a bowl of milk and bread on the floor, but although he's always liked milk, he's now disgusted by it. On the next morning, his sister even looks into the room again. She's really nice, did I mention that? Gregor hides under the sofa and Grete finds out what food he likes now, namely rancid cheese and moldy veggies, so that's what she feeds him now, and he hoovers it down, he's so starved. And while he's crawling around the room and practices reversing into a parking space, he witnesses how the father explains their financial situation to the family. Gregor is really worried since he has been the main earner and is now out of the game, but the father explains that it's not so bad after all because he's got a few reserves. Gregor is quite taken aback by this because he was under the impression that he has to pay back the father's debts with Gregor's boss. Well, anyway, Gregor has this plan of sending his sister to the music academy as a Christmas surprise, which may turn out to be a bug academy, but, well. A kind of routine is being established. Grete enters his room in the morning. She kicks out the old food, jerks the window open because there's such a stench in the room. Then she puts down new food, looks around, and then she's gone again. Gregor tries to hide under a blanket which is draped on the sofa because she's always terrified when she sees him. His mother also wants to visit him, but Grete and Dad don't allow her to do so. As time goes by, Gregor gets more and more skillful in moving like an insect on the walls and the ceiling. His sister realizes this and goes, "Let's get the desk out of the room so he can move around more freely." When the father is gone one day, Grete and the mother go into his room and move out the heavy desk. Then they go out again and the sister says, "Let's move out all the furniture. We'll be doing him a favor." Gregor, however, doesn't like that at all, because then nothing will be left to remind him of the fact that he used to be human. So in order to prevent them from taking away a picture of a beautiful lady that is hanging on the wall, which once he himself had adorned with a fretwork frame, he places himself over it, kind of sticking on the wall. Then the mother comes in again and goes, "Phew, that was quite a bit of work, wasn't it?" And Grete enters too, and she sees Gregor on the wall and goes, "Mom, why don't you go out again at once?" "Why would I, huh?" "Ah!" And she swoons again. Now Grete gets angry and runs next door to get some smelling salt. Gregor hurries after her to assist her, in what form soever he imagines to do that. When he gets into the living room, the father happens to return. Grete goes, "Gregor's escaped," which makes the father angry again. Grete runs then to help the mother, while Gregor is being chased through the living room by the father. Daddy takes apples from a fruit bowl and throws them at Gregor. One of them hits Gregor's carapace and sticks in a really awkward way between two plates there. The terrible thing is that Gregor is unable to reach there in order to get it out, and at some point he's forced back into his room and the door is locked. In the meantime, the father works as a servant in a bank, the mother has taken up sewing, and the sister works as a shop assistant. In the evening, they now leave the door open a little so Gregor can watch the father sleeping on the sofa. As everybody is working, the family don't have much time left to look after their pet, so his room gets very dirty. At one point, a new servant is being hired, and of course she spots Gregor in his room quickly. Interestingly though, she's not afraid of him, but instead says stuff like, "Come here, you old dung beetle." Gregor's a little insulted by that, but he approaches her, and then she threatens him with a chair or whatever's at hand. Gregor very much stops eating. He has no appetite left at all his vitality is gone, but there's 3 other hungry mouths to feed now because the family have taken in 3 lodgers who have usually dinner in the living room. One evening, however, a scandal happens. The stupid servant has forgotten to close Gregor's door, and Grete plays the violin for the lodgers. The 3 of them kind of make fun of Grete, but Gregor is attracted by his sister's music as if by magic, and really wants to save her from the offensive lodgers. Of course, he's being spotted by them, and they are outraged, and jump to their feet, and demand an explanation. The father tries to shove them out of the room, but they go, "We terminate our contract immediately, we'll get the public health authorities here, this is so revolting you won't get a penny of the outstanding rent." Then they're finally gone. And the family is now really down. Grete even puts her instrument down and goes, "It has to go. This can't go on." And the father goes, "You're right." And the mother goes, Gregor has understood. He turns around laboriously, because he's so weak now that he can hardly run on 4 wheels. Then he creeps back into his room. On the next morning, the servant enters Gregor's room. She finds him lying very flat on the floor, pokes at him. He doesn't move, and she wakes the others with a cry, "It is beastly dead." And they all gather round, first and foremost the nosy lodgers, who now, naturally, want to have a close look at the monster. However, Mr. Zamza now gives them the boot in a not too nice way. The servant clears away the dead thing, and then she's chucked out too by Mr. Zamza. It seems that all his vitality is returned now, that the nasty bug is gone. And after months, he finally has the chance again to get out with his dear wife and his beautiful daughter. So they take the tramway out into nature because Prague is wonderful in spring. They relax, they spend a very nice day together and are happy because Grete is now of a marriageable age and will certainly find a loving husband soon who will hopefully feed the whole family again. And this, dear congregation, was The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Vielen Dank.